Good afternoon, everyone. I want to ask all of you to please turn your cell phones to silent and make sure they are off so we can avoid unnecessary feedback. You may notice board members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They are doing solely to conduct board business. This is an official business meeting of the Medical Board of California. As such, disruptions of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need for the board to conduct its business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will ask that person to conduct him or herself in an orderly manner so we may conduct our business. This meeting is available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. Hello. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. To make a comment during the public comment period, press *1. You will hear a tone indicating you are in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and you do not want to make a comment, please press the #sign. Assistance is available throughout the teleconference meeting. To request a specialist, press *0. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. During agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda, the board has limited the public comment period for individuals on the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comment from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to 20 minutes. During public comment on any other agenda item, 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconference line and from those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. Business Services staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting. The board welcomes public comment on any agenda item, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. I would like to request that speakers complete a speaker's slip, which looks like this, so I can call you by name at the appropriate time and the record of this meeting is complete. However, this is voluntary. If you could please give the speaker slips to Miss Lisa Toof, and then she will hand them to me. Lisa, are you here? Hello, good afternoon. I will do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip and to recognize those who wish to make any comments. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and to keep your comments 3 minutes or less. We plan to adjourn today at 5:30. I would like to introduce Christine Lally from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Good to see you. And our former colleague and dear friend, Barbara Yaroslawski, who is also with us. We'll have an opportunity today to honor her service, but thank you for being here at this portion of the meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Toof please call the roll.
Dr. Bolot? Present. Dr. Bishop? Judge Feinstein? Present. Dr. Gonadev?
Here.
Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Dr. Kraus?
Present.
Ms. Lawson?
Here.
Dr. Levine? Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Pines?
Here.
Ms. Sutton-Wills?
Present.
Mr. Wormuth?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Dr. Yip?
Here.
Mr. Serrano-Sewell?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I would like to remind the members that we'll be taking a roll call on every action item as we've just done. Now moving on to agenda item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. I have no speaker slips. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Seeing no public comments or comments from the board members, we can now move on to our next agenda item, approval of the minutes from the January 22nd, 2016 and the February 26, 2016 board meetings.
I'm second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. I have no speaker cards, no public comment. Are there any comments from the phone on the approval
Not
of
at
the
this time.
minutes? Thank you. Ms. Toof, can you please call the roll?
Are we calling vote on each individual one or both together?
The motion was for both of them together.
Thank you. Dr. Bolat? Dr. Bishop? Judge Feinstein? Dr. Gonadev?
Abstain as I wasn't here in January meeting.
Dr. Hawkins? Yes. Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Sutton Wills?
Abstain.
Mr. Warmoth?
Abstain.
Ms. Wright? Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to agenda item 4, the President's Report. As is our custom here at the Medical Board, we like to administer a ceremonial oath of office to our new colleagues, and we'll be doing so. We're very fortunate to have the legislature appoint 2 new members to this Medical Board, and I'll say a little bit about each, and then we'll do the oath of office and take some pictures, and I would ask our colleagues if they want to make any comments to please do so. So we have 2 new members. Let's start with David Warmoth, was appointed on February 29th, 2016 by then Speaker Tony Atkins. David resides in San Diego, and he is a respected civic leader both in San Diego and when he lived in the greater Los Angeles area. He attended Miami University and received his BA in Political Science, International Relations. He was a pioneer in the early computer IT days, served as Director of Marketing, and he has assisted federal, state, and local governments for their computer and IT needs. He's a true pioneer. His civic activities include leading the Los Angeles chapter of the NAMES Project, the San Diego Men's Chorus, and he recently stepped down as a member of the San Diego LGBT Center's Community Leadership Council. So it's great to have David joining us on this board. So we'll do yours first, Mr. Warmoth, if that's okay, and then we'll go on to Ms. Sutton Wills. We're going to do it in the front.
Wall of shame.
Hello. So, I'm going to do it line by line. This is more for my benefit, so I don't miss anything. I appreciate it. So you can say I, and you say your name. I, David Warmoth. Do solemnly affirm. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance. That I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States. To the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. And the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. You did it. Thank you. Welcome.
Good ball.
liked already.
Yeah, right. It's my agenda.
And I have, if everyone will just indulge me, I have a few things that I could say about Ms. Sutton Wills. First of which, we are great to have another attorney on this board. Welcome. And she is currently staff counsel at the California Teachers Association. She currently serves as a member of the American Bar Association Employment Rights and Responsibilities Ethics Subcommittee. And she has presented on those issues on labor and employment to the American Bar Association. She's also covered topics on patient protection in the Affordable Care Act, ethics and professional responsibility, the impact of public pension programs on collective bargaining, and disability discrimination. In 2012, she served as chair of the Labor. Yeah, I'm going to talk about committee rosters. Thank you. I wanted to this is 4B now we're moving on to. I wanted to let everyone know about the board's legislative day, which was mentioned in Dr. Lewis's committee. It's been scheduled for May 11th, next week, 2016. It is our intent to meet with several state and assembly members to educate them on the board, our role and function. In addition, we'll be asking members to use their social media websites to get information regarding the board out to their constituents. We are looking forward to this day and thank the members and staff who have offered to assist in these meetings. We did this last year. I thought it was very successful. Thanks staff and the members that participated. And I thought the elected officials and their staff appreciated it as well. So I know that May 11th will be a success. Over the last quarter, I've had several meetings regarding issues related to the board. I had a call with the board of the Podiatric Medicine's chair, as well as Senator Hill's office. In addition, I've had calls with board staff to discuss issues and projects at the board. I would like to draw the members' attention to BDR 4B-1 and 4B-2, which is the updated committee roster. We have several new members, and we will be reaching out to make new committee appointments shortly. We are in need of members interested in serving on the Enforcement Committee, the Application and Special Programs Committee, and a public member on the Special Faculty Permit Review Committee and the Prescribing Task Force. If any member has interest in these committees or would like to change their current committee assignment, please contact me or Ms. Kirkmeyer. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Okay, no, seeing none. I do have a speaker slip for item 4B. Ms. Ramos? Thank you. 7B. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Michelle Montserrat Ramos. I'm here on behalf of Consumers Union Safe Patient Project. We see that the ratio of public members to physician members is only 1 public member to 5 physicians on the board's powerful executive committee, 0 public members to 3 physician members on the board's important enforcement committee, and only 2 public members to 4 physicians on the board's public outreach, education, and wellness committee. These ratios have only become worse since the board's last distribution of its committee roster in October of last year. It is clearly the intention of the legislature that public members be much more heavily represented in deliberations of the medical board. As you know, California law requires that 7 of 15, nearly half, of the MEC board members be public members. We recommend that the board set a policy and establish a practice that all committees of the medical board reflect a balance similar to that required by the legislature for the full medical board. We urge the board to revisit its committee compositions with the aim of having them reflect the nearly 50-50 physician-public member split of the board itself. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional comments to item 4B? Seeing none from the public, are there any comments on the telephone?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item 5, board member communications with interested parties. Ms. Wright?
Okay. Last Saturday, I was at the 35th Annual Gala for Delta Sigma Theta, and I met the new Dean of Charles Drew Medical University, who I actually told to come here and present on that top, what she's looking to do. So we did have an extensive conversation about the board and public outreach and their path for growth at the university.
Dr. Kraus?
Last week, I was a invited speaker at the annual meeting of the Federation of State Medical Boards, speaking on issues in relation to physician recommendation for marijuana and physician use of marijuana.
Doctor?
Last week I was at the same meeting actually welcoming the entire Federation of State Medical Board on behalf of Medical Board of California, which is the host state. And as also an active member of CMA and involved in various activities in my previous life, I do meet people, but I usually keep the board business and California Medical Association business totally separate.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no, it's so important that members are emissaries for the board, so these interactions are very important. And so I thank all of you for doing that and promoting the mission and goodwill of the board. And we'll have a report from Dr. Lewis, the good work his committees and the other committees are doing. It's important for the public to know about that. So thank you. Are there any comments from the public on item 5? I have no speaker cards. All right, thank you. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to item 6, discussion and possible action on the 2017 proposed board meeting dates. Ms. Kirkmeyer.
Good afternoon, members. I would like to draw your attention to Agenda Item 6. It's on page BRD 6-1. For the 2017 dates identified, this will actually allow the board appropriate amount of time between meetings and also works with other meetings that are scheduled throughout the year, such as the FSMB meeting. If no members have any concerns with these dates or locations, I'd actually like to ask for a motion to approve the board meeting dates and locations as identified in BRD 6-1.
Okay, can I look at that first?
I don't know if anybody has any issues with them. This was actually the first year I think we've been able to schedule out almost evenly in between each of the board meetings. And we've had individuals with time frames in the first week, and we didn't even have to run into any of that. So it looks like it's the last week of each of those months. So January, April, July, and October. The meeting locations would be January is in Sacramento, April would be in Los Angeles, July in San Francisco again, and then October in San Diego. Kind of
All
our
right.
normal.
Great.
I'm
There's a motion.
looking for, I move to approve the dates.
It's been moved by Ms. Wright and seconded by Dr. Lewis. Is there any discussion on the proposed dates from the members? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public? No public comments. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Seeing no comments on the phone, Ms. Toof, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Judge Feinstein? Dr. Gonadev?
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Sutton Wills? Mr. Warmoth?
Aye.
Ms. Wright? Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. We'll now move to item number 7, executive management reports. Ms. Kirkmeyer. And I do have a speaker card for 7B, so just want to let you know. Thank you.
I will not be going over all of the administrative summary, the enforcement program summary, or the licensing program summary unless someone has a question, because they're all in your packet. However, I do have a few items I would like to bring to your attention. I'd first like to draw the members' attention to page BRD 7A-4, which is the board's fund condition. At this time, the board's fund reserve is projected to be at 3.8 months at the end of the fiscal year and below the mandate in fiscal year 17-18. This is something the board staff will continue to watch closely and work with the department budget staff. I'm pleased to report that the board's budget change proposals to hire an additional staff in our central complaint unit and to increase our expert reviewer funding was approved by both the Senate and Assembly budget committees. Once the budget bill makes it out of both of the Senate and the Assembly and the governor signs it, the board will be able to hire this one additional staff in our enforcement unit. As stated at the last meeting, the other two budget change proposals going through the process is the augmentation for the Attorney General's office due to Senate Bill 467 and the change due to the transition of the registered dispensing optician program to the Board of Optometry. So we'll be losing 0.5 position and $39,000. We continue to monitor the CURES registration process and notify physicians that they must be registered by July 1st of 2016. We have placed information on our website as well that provides tutorials, frequently asked questions, and helpful tips. We have had to answer a lot of calls from physicians who are trying to get registered and may have had an issue with the information that is on file with the Department of Justice compared to what the board has on file. We've been able to assist the physicians to help them get registered. I was recently also asked to assist in sending physicians a survey regarding the CURES 2.0 system. This survey will go out probably into the fall and will ask physicians how CURES 2.0 is working for them and any problems they are having, as well as any suggestions for improvement. This survey is part of the study on opioids and part of the grant work that's being done by the California Department of Public Health after receiving a grant from the CDC and also from DOJ, who was also awarded a grant to study the issues with the opioid epidemic, including the use of cures. DOJ wants to use this survey to determine if changes are needed to the system. The survey, of course, will be more on the CURES 2.0 system and not on the registration process. So are there any questions so far regarding to CURES?
Doctor?
Ms. Kirkmeyer, so I see that $6 million will be repaid to us, 16, 17, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So, and just let me let you know kind of how that works, Dr. Ganev. Let me get to that page first, sorry. When this gets put into the information provided by our budget office, if we are over our mandate, though, they will look at this again to determine if that, those monies will be repaid. But scheduled right now, it's $6 million in that year, and then $2 million in 17-18, and that will leave us with an outstanding balance of $7 million.
Hopefully we get it back, so.
Are there any other questions on, is this part of 7A still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I would also like to draw your attention to page 7E1. With the elimination of the board members on the Health Professions Education Foundation, I've actually asked the executive director of the foundation to provide a written report to include in the board updates. This will ensure that we stay informed about the actions of the foundation. In regards to the issue of overprescribing psychotropic medication to foster care children, you will find a written update on page BRD 7A3. In addition to that report, I just wanted to let you know that we recently had the exit interview with the Bureau of State Audits. As you are aware, they were requested to perform an audit on this issue. While the audit really focused on the Department of Healthcare Services and the Department of Social Services and the counties, a portion of it also reviewed the board and what we are doing on the issue. That report should be released in the summer. We will continue to move forward on this issue and be proactive in identifying physicians who may be inappropriately prescribing. There's also a bill related to this issue that Ms. Simoes will be discussing tomorrow. I wanted to let you know that we have been meeting with the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, who is taking the lead on ensuring the End-of-Life Option Act is fully implemented by June 9th, when this law takes effect. We have developed a webpage specifically to this issue, which will be released upon approval of the Department of Public Health's website. While we developed some of the forms, the other forms were actually developed by Public Health, so we need to ensure that the links to those forms are on our website, and we have to make sure that they're available prior to us releasing our website, so we're kind of just waiting for them right now. We also have met with some experts in this area, and we will also be having a presentation at our July board meeting regarding this new law that takes effect on June 9th. I wanted to update the members on the prescription opioid misuse and overdose prevention work group led by the California Department of Public Health. And for those new members, this is actually a statewide work group with state agencies involved. It has other departments from, other boards from the Department of Consumer Affairs, Department of Healthcare Services, Department of Insurance, Department of Justice, Workers' Comp. It's like a very large work group on this issue. We've been a part of this work group for almost 2 years now. While a lot of great collaboration has been done by this work group, and we've worked together on some messaging and outreach, the work group has now identified some priorities and are developing different task forces that will be working in different areas on this issue. I'm very excited about the work that is going to be happening with these task forces. So the different task forces are the Communication and Outreach Task Force, the Integrated Healthcare and Policy Task Force, the Treatment Task Force, and the Data Gathering and Sharing Task Force. We will be working with Public Health on these issues, and I look forward to reporting back to you once these task forces get off the ground. This really has been a concentrated effort by all of the entities, and we continue to bring in more stakeholders with that same goal in mind. And I'm glad that finally it seems now we're actually to the point where we're going to get some work done. It was kind of like for a year we've been kind of talking about it. Now we're actually putting, the wheels on the bus and moving forward. And then lastly, I would like to remind members to please turn in all of your travel expense claims as soon as possible. The cutoff date is June 1st, and we want to make sure you get paid by the end of the fiscal year. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions, colleagues? I don't see any. Looking to my left, to my right. All right, I have a speaker card for Ms. Chong.
Good afternoon, Yvonne Chung with the California Medical Association. We wanted to raise an issue related to Agenda Item 7B, the Enforcement Program Summary, specifically on the issue of the Expert Reviewer Program. In the report, it indicates that the board is seeking expert reviewers there's a list of specialties listed there. We would like to suggest that the medical board consider allowing osteopathic physicians to serve as expert reviewers as appropriate in specialties where you're having trouble recruiting MDs to serve. As you know, CMA represents all physicians in California, both allopathic and osteopathic, and the state of California recognizes osteopathic physicians and allopathic physicians as equivalent. They both receive a physician and surgeon's license. And in addition, there are medical education, their postgraduate training. They're going to eventually be accredited by a merged organization. So more and more, the differences between allopathic and osteopathic physicians are shrinking. We understand that there may be some concerns regarding whether or not it weakens enforcement cases if the expert reviewer is a DO and the licensee is an MD, but we think it's worthwhile for the board to take a look with their legal counsel as to whether or not this actually does pose a barrier, because there is a pool of highly qualified physicians who would be able to serve as expert reviewers in many of these specialties, and we urge the board to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public on the executive director's report? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone on item 7?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to item number 8, update on the Federation of State Medical Boards. Ms. Kirkmeyer.
The Federation of State Medical Boards annual meeting took place in San Diego last week. On BRD 8-1, you will find the agenda for the meeting. While there were several great speakers, including our very own Dr. Kraus, who spoke on legal and legislative challenges of the changing medical marijuana landscape, I was extremely impressed with the opening presentation by the United States Surgeon General. He focused most of his presentation on the issue of overprescribing of opioids, but also talked about stress and physician burnout. Dr. Murthy talked about what is being done at the federal level on both of these issues. There were several different sessions, but overall, with the new chair being elected, I see physician burnout as being one of the leading issues at the Federation in the next year. They will also be taking a look at physician compounding, among other topics. Dr. Gonadev, Dr. Lewis, and Dr. Kraus also attended the meeting, as well as Ms. Delp and Mr. Warden, and I would like to actually ask the board members if they have any additional comments regarding the meeting and their takeaways.
Please share.
Yeah, I do want to thank Ms. Kirschmeyer for actually writing together for me what to say at the opening. So it was just to give you a little fun, it was the top 10 odd laws in California. So the entire meeting had so much fun just at the beginning. So we started with a great note and finished in a great note. So Kim, thank you.
Dr. Kraus?
This was only my second attendance at the FSMB meeting, but it's a great opportunity to meet colleagues on state medical boards around the country and to discuss how we're facing identical circumstances and to look at different solutions. So I would encourage our own board members to look at the dates for the meetings over 2017 and 2018 to see if you could make time to attend. And I'd also like to strongly compliment Ms. Kirschmeyer. I don't know how long she's attended these meetings, but she's sought after for her opinion and very well respected, and that makes me proud to serve on this medical board.
The highlight for me of the meeting was the networking for the western region of state medical boards. And as Dr. Kraus said, Kimberly presented the highlights of what we are doing in Medical Board of California. And you know, probably 50% of the questions that were taken that whole session were to Kimberly, and to get advice on for their own state medical boards on their issues and their struggles, what they feel with their own boards and their own legislator and policies. And so I was also very proud and very happy that we were, the opinion of our executive director was highly sought after at that networking meeting.
Great. Thank you for participating at that important convention. Are there any comments from those in the audience on this agenda item 8? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item 9, update, presentation, and possible action on the sunset review process, new sunset issues. And Ms. Kirkmeyer, because we have new members and to refresh the memories of those of us that have been on this board, can you start with, as your report does, what is the sunset review process? Or what is sunset? Like, you know, what, all right.
So the sunset review, and it's kind of outlined in here, this is actually a joint venture by both the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee, as well as the Assembly Budget and Professions Committee, to review the boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs to see if they're meeting their mandates. It's a process that begins with a questionnaire that is sent to the board. I believe last year, I think we had 5, maybe 2-inch binders, I believe, that was the medical board's report that we provided to the legislature. Kind of outlining, they basically ask a ton of questions about all of the different avenues, from budgets to personnel to licensing to enforcement. And once they do that questionnaire to us, we work really hard to put that together, and that does come to the full board for its review and information and input. We usually have a subcommittee that will help us with the writing of it and the overview, because unfortunately, because the board meets quarterly, it doesn't give us a lot of time to meet with the board itself to go over it. And so usually you're seeing a final product. But what happens is after that report gets done, then we actually goes to the Senate, the Joint Committee, they review it, and then they write back to us and tell us what issues they have with the board or what they'd like us to respond to, areas where they have concern, areas where they have questions. Sometimes it's just, how many doctors did you do, when this bill was implemented, how many doctors have applied for that? It could be as easy as that, all the way up to, we have concerns with the length of time it takes for enforcement or the vertical enforcement process. All of those are kind of the questions that come forward. And then what happens is then the board president and usually the executive director then will be called before those committees in March. And so we would then have to provide our presentation. Basically, all of this is accumulated because we have a statute right now that says on January 1st, 2018, the laws of the medical board, establishing the medical board, are repealed. So that's the real basis of it, because this whole process goes on for the legislature then to carry a bill that will extend the board, hopefully for 4 years. We did this in 2012 and 2013, and then the bill was carried in 2013 to move us from 14 to 18. We got 4 years. There have been boards that go through the process that have gotten 1 year. I believe just recently there was a 1-year one, and then there have been also boards with 2 years. I'm looking at Ms. Lawley. I think that's kind of been the issue, and it depends on how many issues you have as to kind of where you are in that scheme. We've been able to do the 4 years, so we were happy with that. It is a long and arduous process, but it's one that's very valuable for the consumers of California because they need to take a look at how the boards are doing and see that. So I think I've kind of went outside of my notes here, so give me a second. So the process is all outlined in your notes. Part of the issue I wanted to go over is we had 39 issues. Part of what they look at as well as your past information and your responses to those surveys and what have you done. And so we had 39 issues last year that came, or when we did it in 2013, that came from the Joint Committee. However, I know when everybody hears 39 issues, it's like, oh my gosh, 39 issues with the medical board. But I want to let you know 20 of those were actually brought from the medical board to them. Because the other part of the Sunset Review that's really important for us is there's a new issues section. And that is the board's opportunity to put something in where maybe we need legislation, where we have an issue that we want them to look at for us and maybe carry that in our sunset bill. It's a great opportunity for us. So of those, 20 of those were ours. So on pages BRD 9-21 to 27, we actually put a chart together of those 39 issues. And actually, I'm happy to report, I believe that there's only 3 of those areas, and they're highlighted in yellow on those pages, that the medical board actually still has outstanding. And 2 of the 3 are actually issues that we believe, once we meet with committee staff, that there won't be any need to move forward on them. And I'll just go over those real quickly. The first one is actually if you look on page 21, the first one there in yellow is actually the reentry issue. So the length of time that an individual can be out of practice before they actually have to prove that they're competent. As you know, in California, as long as an individual continues to renew their license, they can continue to practice. There's nothing that has to tell us, hey, I've been out of practice for 2 years, and so, or 3 years, whatever we determine, and then they have to do a competency assessment. We don't have that in California, but we do have it on our probationers. If they've been out of practice for 18 months, they have to go to basically PACE. So that was an issue we had identified. It's an issue we're still working on. Part of the reason we're still working on it is because there isn't really a true great reentry program for physicians. So one thing the board has really been good about is not putting in a requirement on a physician that they actually can't meet. So that's where we're looking at that. The other issue is on page 23, and that was the committee, and I'm not really sure where this came from, but they thought that we should engage stakeholders to look at ways to analyze current data from a lot of healthcare facilities. We've tried to meet with or kind of talk about this with the committee. We want to talk to them to say, at the time, I think they weren't sure that we really should take this on. It really wasn't the role of the medical board, and so we're going to be talking to them about that and saying, is this still an issue that you want us to look into? Because from our perspective, it seemed to be something that the committee should assist with. And so we'll talk to them about that. And then the last and probably the most controversial would be on the last page, 9-27, and that was the consolidation of the osteopathic physician board as well with the medical board. And so it was to bring the allopathic and osteopathic boards together. That's another issue that we will be meeting with specifically Senate Business and Professions Committee staff, because I believe that that's where that came from. And there's a lot of issues around that, in that I believe the osteopathic physicians were created by an initiative, and I don't know if that would require an initiative to change that. But we'll be talking to the Senate staff to make sure that, do they want us to really reply to these issues and move that forward. So those are the outstanding issues from the last time. And then the last thing I want to bring to your attention, and I'll go to those pages, and I'm not going to go over them specifically unless any member wants to, is we've identified, before we spend a lot of time and energy in putting together the Sunset Report and the new issues, I want to make sure that these issues, rather than us go work on them and then bring it to the board as we've done in the past, and then have the board say yay or nay, I would actually like to start it early, because one thing I didn't say is we don't even have the questions. This is very unusual, but we don't even have the questions from the committee yet. I'm going based on looking at what the boards from last year had to reply, so we're hoping that it will be similar in process and everything. So we're looking at, I think there's 11 issues. They start on BRD 9-3 to 9-4, and I'm just going to read the titles, and if anybody has questions outside of what's written here, please let me know. But I'd like to know if the board would like us to move forward with these issues in our Sunset Report, so we will begin to work on them. So the first one is the expiration date of our licenses. Right now, it's by birth month, and we would actually like to start that 2 years from the issuance date, because we don't want to have to prorate. That's an issue that's been coming up, and we would like to issue licenses for 2 years from the date of issuance rather than on the birth month. Postgraduate training requirements, you all heard in the licensing committee, we want to extend that from 1 year to possibly 2 or 3 years. Data collection for outpatient surgery settings, this came out of prior legislation last year. We had tried to get some requirements in last year, and basically at the end, due to opposition from different interested parties, we said we would take this back, discuss it at the board. We have a meeting actually set on May 26th already to discuss this with the interested parties, but we think that that should be an issue in the sunset. Amendments to the adverse event reporting for outpatient surgery settings, that also is one that the law that went into effect, it left us with the same adverse event reporting as hospitals. However, and we've been doing that now for 2 years, and in looking at the reports, people are confused because sometimes what a hospital has to report is very different from an outpatient surgery setting, so we'd like to look at some amendments to that. But again, we'd have to bring interested parties together because we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Posting of information related to a probationary license. Right now, the law states that if an individual is a licensee and gets placed on probation, that information is on our web page indefinitely, or as long as it's public, which is indefinitely. However, if an applicant is issued a probationary license, as soon as they go off probation, it goes off the board's website. We think that that's unfair, and so we want to make sure that that's covered. Reporting of 805.01 reports. Right now, peer review under 805, you actually have a penalty for the peer review entities who don't report to the medical board. We didn't put in penalties in 805.01, which is a pre-report, and we've had a very limited number come in, and we think that that's a consumer protection issue, so we'd like to add penalties to that. We have both some enforcement and some licensing program cleanup that are both listed there. The Health Professions Education Foundation, as you know, we got removed from that. That was an issue actually Mr. Serrano-Sewell brought up at the last meeting. And then the specialty board approval. This is one that the medical board brought up under last sunset, and due to opposition, it wasn't able to get into any legislative change. But again, we continue to believe that the board is not the entity to perform this function, and we would request that that be removed through the legislative process. We know that some of these will be controversial, but we would like to write them up for inclusion into the sunset review.
Are you asking for a
I would
motion?
ask for a motion to add.
Before that, we'll get to the motion, but colleagues, do you have any questions about the process or any element of Ms. Kirkmeyer's report? Do you think things should be added to what just or do you want to emphasize that, something actually, emphasize any one of these? But any comments I know would be really helpful to staff as they go through this process. It's only once every 4 years, right, or so.
Comment.
I'm looking to my left. Well, I'll look to my right first. Was there a comment here? Yes, Doctor.
I'm just wondering if when we meet with legislators over the years, are you getting a sense that some other things might come up? They might be hot buttons that we might be able to start working on? Because here's a list here. It looks pretty obvious, but are you hearing something merging themes?
I think that the timelines for enforcement will be a big issue for the medical board. I think vertical enforcement will still be an issue for the medical board. And I think we'll actually probably have specific questions to both of those issues. We have and I don't see David, Mr. Chris isn't here yet, but, they have issues for hiring individuals, which has negatively impacted our enforcement timelines. In our central complaint unit, as I've stated, and as in our report, we've increased time there. I think that the timeframes will be one issue that comes up that will be a hot button, because it is with almost every board. I'm going to look at Ms. Lawley. I think it's almost been every board that has come up with in regards to the enforcement timeframes, and a lot of that has to do with due process, but there's also some other things boards can do. The FTC may come up as an issue. The decision by the Federal Trade Commission with versus the North Carolina dental examiners might be an issue. But that'll come out as a question for us, not
Later.
Same thing with the timelines. They'll come out as questions from us for the board specifically, I think.
Okay, so there are other things you might be able to add to this list.
Yeah,
No.
there might be.
No, okay.
They won't be coming in as new issues. They will probably be more like responses to the committee as they bring them up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just for Kim, is anyone brought up the intrastate license compact issue for us in California other than what we decided as a board?
To date, no, but that could always come up. I think what's going to happen is now, we didn't talk about this, but there's 23 states that are either have adopted it or that are in process. I think as other states get it, I think there will be interested parties that come to California to try to get it put in California once it gets going in other states.
Dr. Hawkins?
Any risk of bringing these up as new issues, the completion timeframe, and maybe shooting herself in the foot?
Yeah, completion timeframe isn't on my list, just so you know. That will be one I'm sure that will come out of the committee. And you're absolutely right, Dr. Hawkins, and that's why when we've looked at this, we've really looked at it as, are these things that we really need to change the legislation, then that we want to put in as new issues? And staff will know that my big thing was, hey, I don't want to put in a bunch of issues because it looked like we had a bunch of problems when really we didn't. A lot of them were ours. But these are so important, I think, to the board, for the most part, all of them. And this is the right time to get legislative changes made. So I don't see any of these as problems that will come back to hit the board.
Thank you.
I had a question, and maybe it's in here, so forgive me if I missed it. But this board has discussed the statement plaque that's in a physician's office. That's in there.
No. I've
Go
been
ahead.
sitting here racking my brain because
was that it?
Ms. Webb and I have been saying, okay, we had one other thing that was, and that's it. Yes,
Okay.
the sign, and that should be added
you
to the
would.
list. Yep.
I think it was my view that it should be something along the lines of, I don't want to write it right now. But if you have questions, in addition, please call this number, or, reference to the website. Sort of a how am I doing kind of thing. Yeah. My personal view is it should have that information, but, be a neutral statement, just matter of fact for the consumer. Are there any additional observations or comments from the board? No. Go, yeah, this is the time to add it, yeah.
Yeah, motion. Do you want a motion on this? I have nothing else except what we talked about added.
Okay, sure.
Any other comments?
No
I think
additional
it's time to
comments?
make, well, so I'll make a motion that staff entertain the additional comments these plus the additional comments that we've mentioned by the board members.
All right.
Oh, so I have to sign. Okay.
There's been a motion. It's been a second. Thank you. Before we take a vote, we'll do public comment. I do have one speaker card in front of me on Lisa McGiffert. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa McGiffert with Consumers Union Safe Patient Project, and I just want to start by welcoming the new members. This is the first time in years that the consumer positions have all been filled, and we are delighted to see that finally come to fruition. Thank you for being here. A couple of things that we wanted to call to your attention that we would like to see in the Sunset Review. One of them is about outpatient surgery center settings, and we support the staff's position to get those surgery settings that are owned by physicians to report to the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development information about the procedures they're doing. We don't really have any idea what they're doing, and that should be done in a standard way, so we're glad to see that on your list. On the adverse event disclosures that occur in these outpatient settings, we urge the medical board to post these on the website, and if you need legislative approval to do that, please do. It is required by the law that covers hospitals at the Department of Public Health, and we think it covers you too, but if we need clarification, please do that. And then in the law, there's a requirement that you provide that information to consumers and journalists who ask for it, and that's under the hospital law, and our understanding is that it should apply to the outpatient settings too. We support the staff recommendation to look into the kinds of procedures or the kind of adverse events that these outpatient settings that might occur in them that are different than hospitals, but whenever there's an opportunity to be the same as the hospitals, that's good for comparison for consumers, so they can see, are these more frequent in the outpatient settings or in hospitals? That's an important piece of information. The accreditors now are required to look into the background of the ownership interests, whether they've had accreditation problems in the past. We think they should also be required to look into the physicians, the owners of the physician owners' background. Is their license in good standing? That should be a requirement. Right now, there's a sign that's required to be posted in all the offices of physicians, and we've been talking to the staff for a while about our desire to change that sign so it's more clearly giving information to patients to include language about where to look up your doctor's history and how to file a complaint. Right now, the signs are pretty generic, and I think most consumers wouldn't know what it's about. Also on the statute of limitations, I don't have time to go into all the details about it, but there are some issues. It's a very confusing law, and often consumers don't know when their time limit is up. We've seen in other states where they require, if a complaint comes in from somebody other than the patient be notified that that complaint was there. And we support your recommendations on the 805 report, so we appreciate seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public on item 9 and the motion to adopt those sets of recommendations? Seeing no additional comments from the audience, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tuve, can you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Dr. Bolat? Aye. Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Ganadev?
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Sutton-Wills? Yes. Mr. Warmoth? Aye. Ms. Wright? Aye. Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano-Sewell?
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Now moving on to agenda item 10, update from the Department of Consumer Affairs, which may include updates pertaining to the Department's administrative services, human resources, enforcement, information technology, communications, and outreach. as well as legislative, regulatory, and policy matters.
That's a lot.
I know. They do all that at DCA?
We do a lot.
Thank you
And
for
more.
being with us.
All right. Good afternoon, President and board members. My name is Christine Lally. I'm the Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations with the Department of Consumer Affairs, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. First, a very warm welcome to the new members. Welcome aboard on behalf of Director Kadani, and thank you for your service, and definitely look forward to working with you. Next, I'd like to update you, sadly, I might add, on a change to the department's executive team. After 8 years with the department, our Chief Deputy Director, Tracy Ryan, accepted a new job with the Rural County Representatives of California about 2 weeks ago. While we are still grieving her departure, we are extremely proud of her as she embarks on this new endeavor, and Tracy's contributions to the department continue. The department is also in the early stages of developing a training specifically for new executive officers and growing our next generation of EOs. DCA will be sending out a survey to all of our executive officers as well as board members to assess current training needs for executive officers, and we hope that you'll participate in that. That should be going out later this month. Additionally, DCA's Solid team, that's our training center, will be facilitating brown bag gatherings for our executive officers to facilitate networking and training opportunities for EOs. And actually, our first one is next week on May 11th, which coincides with your legislative day. So we'll have to catch Kim next time. Next, I'd like to update you on SB 1195, and that is a bill which the board will be discussing tomorrow. This bill is authored by Senator Jerry Hill, which, as I'm sure you know, is the chair of the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee. This bill was amended on April 6th to include a number of provisions that address some antitrust issues presented by the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission U.S. Supreme Court decision that came out last February. One of the most significant changes proposed in SB 1195 that is relevant to DCA boards is that it grants the department director expanded authority over regulations to ensure they are not anti-competitive. Currently, the DCA director can only disapprove regulations if they would injure the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Should the executive director or board members have any questions regarding this bill or any other pieces of legislation, the department does have a ledge director, Ms. Melinda McLean, that is always available to assist. Finally, this afternoon, I wanted to provide an update on the BREEZE system, which is always a fruitful topic here at the board meeting, but I come with good news. First, wanted to start off with some statistics that, again, I think we're moving in the right direction. The board continues to see a very high volume of applications submitted online, and at the end of March, the medical board received about 8,500 applications online. For applications requiring a payment, this represents approximately 63% of the total application volume for that period. Renewals make up the vast majority of the board applications received online, a little over 7,700 at the end of March. And of those individuals who renewed online, which I think this statistic is, if you listen to anything, listen to this, 99% of them were approved the very same day. So that is incredible customer service. At the department level, for the 18 programs on the BREEZE IT system, we're approaching a milestone of about $200 million processed via the online BREEZE portal. Just over half the money processed in BREEZE has been via online, so we're very proud about that. Next, concerning BREEZE, another topic that we've discussed here before, enhancements to the system, which we continue to work very closely with your executive director on. As you may be aware, DCA launched the second release of BREEZE in January 19th, earlier this year. This added 7 boards and 1 bureau to the BREEZE system. So now we have a total of 18 of our 40 programs on the BREEZE system. Since the January launch, DCA and the Breeze vendor have drastically increased the number of system changes that are regularly deployed through maintenance updates. For example, in 2015, there was an average of 73 fixes deployed in the Breeze scheduled maintenance updates. Compared to January of this year, an average of 153 fixes, so more than double last year, are going into each maintenance release. The maintenance updates to the Breeze system occur every 6 to 7 weeks. The next scheduled maintenance that we're looking towards is in June, and there are approximately 250 changes in that release. Specific to the medical board, since January of this year, the Med Board has put forward and enacted 57 changes or enhancement and/or fixes to the Breeze system. At the end of April, the Medical Board has a total of 159 outstanding defects and/or enhancements pending for the Breeze system. A portion of these 159 are older requests, so DCA's IT team, along with your executive director, are going through to prioritize if some of those requests are still necessary. I also wanted to share with you an exciting opportunity that the department is embarking on, and this is a business analytics tool that we will be layering on top of the Breeze system. DCA is partnering specifically with Medical Board IT staff to pilot a new reporting tool that will eventually be used by all of DCA's boards and bureaus. The reporting tool is named QBERT, which stands for Quality Business Intelligence Reporting Tool, and it is linked directly to all of the data that's in the Breeze system. This reporting tool's objective is to provide the board staff greater flexibility to build and modify data reports. It puts the data directly in the hands of the board staff. Thus far, DCA has received positive feedback from the 4 programs in the pilot, and Medical Board is one of them. And just want to thank, again, your staff for the very valuable feedback on key areas to enhance the tool's effectiveness. This data analytics tool is scheduled for rollout department-wide in fall of this year. And we did a preview of the tool, I think it was December of last year. And once I saw that demo, I wish we had it the very next day. I think that was the sentiment of a lot of the boards, so we're very excited about that. Finally, DCA staff is also working with MedBoard staff on enhancement to the Breeze Verify a License main page that allows the consumer to look up licensees. And we're definitely working on trying to make this page more user-friendly. Specifically, we are under development of surveys and focus groups to get feedback on making the main page more user-friendly. The surveys will likely go out early summer, and we'll be convening some focus groups late summer. So we'll definitely be working with your executive director on getting the appropriate stakeholders in those focus groups. Last, on behalf of DCA and the Office of Information Services, that's our IT department at the Department of Consumer Affairs, I want to just say again a special thank you to Medical Board leadership and staff for always being so accessible and responsive to help us when we need to get through some IT matters. We know you're extremely busy, yet you always find time to assist us and work together with us. So our continued appreciation on your partnership. That concludes my update for the department. If there's any questions or any information I can bring back to Director Kadani, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, first, if you could also add our deep appreciation to Ms. Ryan. I've had occasion, maybe all have, she's joined us for dinners and occasion to be in meetings with her, and she brings her experience and clarity to the issue. It's just a true asset to the entire DCA and to this medical board. So we are very appreciative and wish her the best of continued success in her new assignment.
I couldn't agree more.
Colleagues, do you have any comments or questions? Yes.
Oh, no.
It'll be okay.
Oh, that was out loud.
You gotta accentuate the
even-
positive.
Even before I started, Ms. Lally, already, no, I do actually. You will be surprised that the breeze is getting better, slowly, very painstakingly slowly, but actually getting better. So that's a true appreciation. I think your IT person, we pounded on him a couple board meetings ago, and I think we felt bad afterwards, but it is important because it's the only way either a consumer can get information or a physician can renew his or her license. I mean, that's very important. So if you could do the same thing on the enforcement side, get the timelines down, get things faster, we truly will appreciate it, because when people ask me, they tell them that they are in the lap of DCA now. They're not they still report, but they're actually your employees.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Yip?
I actually had the same request, that we had problem before extracting data, analyzing data. So hopefully Cuba helps the enforcement and the probation unit and the as well as like extracting the data and collecting data. So I appreciate if our staff can work with the committee more closely, updating what's going on with the Cuba, so we can feedback to you and make the program much more efficient.
It really is an incredible tool. It's you can manipulate the data so quickly, put it into columns, sort it different ways. So I think it's definitely going to be an asset to this board and all of the programs.
Thank you. Looking to my left, are there additional comments? All right. Are there any comments from the audience on Ms. Lally's report? Seeing none, are there any comments from the telephone?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your report. Colleagues, will now move on to item 11, update, discussion, and possible action on recommendations from the Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee. Dr. Lewis.
Well, most of you were just here an hour ago, so this should be fresh in your mind, but I'll go over it for those few who were not. The Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee met earlier this afternoon, very early. The first agenda item of the committee discussed was an update on the public outreach plan, and after the committee meeting in January, I had the opportunity to work with staff to set due dates, priorities for all the outreach activities. You can find the priority update chart in the committee materials. I think it's under agenda item or tab 4. Of note, the staff has already completed some of the activities, as I discussed today. A message occurring state employees, vendors, and contractors to check up on their doctor's licenses will appear on all California warrants issued by the State Controller's Office during the period of June 1 to June 30. This will reach approximately almost 440,000 individuals. An article with information about the board and its link to the board website will be included in the CalSTRS and California State Retirees Organization in April. This has already been done. It'll also be out in the spring and summer of 2016 with those groups. The target readership of these groups is 934,000 individuals. The board staff has reached out to numerous other organizations, cities, counties, unions, AARP, and others. The board staff is working with the website tutorial on how to look up on your doctor, which will be completed by the next meeting of the board in July. And also on PSAs, public service announcements, that can be provided to various media organizations and other interested parties, and this should be completed sometime in September. The board staff also updated the committee on the status of the Public Affairs Strategic Plan activities. That's in tab 5. And lastly, the committee had discussion on possible enhancements to the board's website. We reviewed the recent Consumer Reports survey and the ranking of medical and osteopathic boards websites that was done in 2015, and we discussed possible enhancements to address the issues raised in this survey. And the committee heard recommendations from staff and from others that will be put into place. So that concludes the presentation of that committee. Thank you. Any comments? Board members?
Well, I'd like to make a comment. I was at the meeting, and I want to commend you and staff and the committee for this accelerated action that you've taken. You did the presentation in February. You said, this is what the committee has set out to do, and then you did it. And we're making movement. We're moving the ball down the court, and it's very exciting. So thank you, Ron, for that, and staff for getting that all together. There's always more work to do, but we're taking that first step, and I think it's very positive. And it's something to talk about on Wednesday. We're in Sacramento.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Seeing no additional comments from the members, are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
No? Okay, now we'll go to 12, update on the Physician Assistant Board. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you very much. The last board meeting was in April 2016. At that time, we had a new member, Senate Pro Temp Kevin De Leon appointed Miriam Valencia, JD, to the Physician Assistant Board. She replaces Christina Gomez Vidal. Ms. Valencia from Tujunga is Regional Government Affairs Manager for Outfront Media, formerly CBS Outdoor. She's a member of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, Los Angeles County Business Federation, and Los Angeles World Affairs Council. Her term expires January 1, 2019, and she was warmly welcomed to the board. Under the category of Sunset Review, the Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development and Assembly Committee on Business and Professions completed their Sunset Oversight Review of the board on March 9, 2016. In preparation of the oversight hearing, staff of the committees developed a background paper which summarized the contents of the board's Sunset Report. The paper also reviewed the board's prior Sunset Review to determine if we implemented prior committee recommendations. Finally, the paper addressed current Sunset issues. Committee staff identified 10 issues for the Physician's Assistant Board. Out of these 10 issues, committee staff identified 4 issues which were discussed by the board's president, vice president, and executive officer at the hearing. It was noted by committee staff that since its last review, the Physician's Assistant Board has shown a commitment to improve its overall efficiency and effectiveness and has worked cooperatively with the legislature and the committees to bring about necessary changes. It has been recommended by the legislature that the Physician Assistant Board continue to regulate physician assistants. AB 2193 has been introduced, which would extend the sunset date of the PAB for 4 years. Under BREEZE implementation, PAB staff is working with the BREEZE team to update the online version of the physician assistant application. With this update, applicants no longer will be required to submit a paper application when they apply online. This change should be taking place in May. Currently, online applicants must also submit a complete hard copy application. This change will be more efficient and user-friendly for applicants while allowing the PAB to more quickly process applications. The PAB is also working on a BREEZE system change that would allow licensees to change their addresses online. This change should take place in June. This enhancement will make it more convenient for licensees to update their addresses with the board. Licensees will still have the option of submitting address change requests to the board in writing or via our website. Under regulations, there are 4 items I would like to bring to the medical board's attention. First, a regulatory proposal for the board's disciplinary guidelines, uniform standards regarding substance abusing healthcare licensees, was approved by the Office of Administrative Law on April 11, 2016. The regulation will become effective on July 1, 2016. Second, at the board's last meeting, the members raised questions about the current criminal conviction disclosure requirements. Specifically, current concerns were raised regarding whether the $300 trigger for reporting infractions was too low, and that the board might be receiving too many disclosures for convictions, such as minor traffic violations unrelated to the practice of physician assistants. The board voted to request that staff bring text to the next board meeting showing the proposed changes discussed at the meeting for possible initiation of a rulemaking file to amend current regulations. Third, in regards to the board's requirements for approved PA programs, the board voted to create a special subcommittee to look at physician assistant specialty programs and consider applications for approval. Last, the board discussed the now widespread practice of the use of electronic signatures in patient records and other documents utilized in the medical environment. It was recognized that electronic signatures allow for the more efficient use of medical practitioners, thus improving patient care. The board voted to request that staff bring text to the next board meeting showing proposed changes which would include the use of electronic signatures and the delegations of service agreement for possible initiation of rulemaking to file to amend current regulations. And finally, and as always, once again, the PA board would like to thank the medical board, your executive officer, and your staff for your continued support.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Are there any questions from the members on the report? All right, seeing none, are there any comments from the public? No comments from the audience? Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the agendized items, but it is, I guess, the prerogative of the president and this board to take up other items. So if we could ask Ms. Yaroslawski to come up, if you don't mind. Yes, it does. So this is, hello, I'll get it started and just say a little bit about Ms. Yaroslawski. One, no, sit down. Come, please, we're family. One, she's served on this board for almost 13 years. Yeah, we did the math. She has served and led virtually every standing committee of this board: licensing, enforcement, public outreach, other external boards. But I would say beyond the service and what the 13 years represent are, one, this focused commitment to this Bureau's mandate, and that is consumer protection. And if you look at where the board was at 13 years ago under different leadership and where we are today, which I think is, knock on wood, a pretty good place, fulfilling our mission, it's because of the dedicated commitment and leadership of Ms. Yaroslawski. So consumers are better off because of what Barbara did on this board. The rules that she promulgation, the rules that she led, the policy matters that she did, all of that stuff is because of her leadership. And more equally as important, I would say, for those of us that got to serve with Barbara, she would welcome any new member, take them under their wing, explain the process. I know you did that with me, and I know you've done that with other members. And sort of get things going and be a source of wise counsel on thorny matters that came before the board. And recognition, so we're all going to say a few things and then you can talk, Barbara. So we're not there yet. But in recognition of your service, and we'll have a chance later on tonight to talk about that as well, the Senator Allen, who could not be here, he missed, his flights were delayed. However, he has sent just an incredible resolution from the Senate honoring your service. And I think after 13 years, you get to read all the whereases, right? So I'm going to do that. So forgive me. And then I would invite my colleagues to say a few words as well. Whereas, there's 4 or 5 whereas clauses. This is the first one. Whereas Barbara Yaroslawski is completing her term on the Medical Board of California, and in recognition of her outstanding achievements during her tenure on the board and her exemplary record in personal and civic leadership, she is deserving of special honors and the highest commendations of the public. And whereas Ms. Yaroslawski has devoted her life to community and civic engagement, particularly in the areas of education, healthcare, and human service delivery to communities in need, and over the years, her civic involvement has included leadership positions with the Saban Free Clinic, formerly known as the Los Angeles Free Clinic, chair of the State Health Professions Education Foundation, and membership on the Los Angeles Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, just to name a few of her many affiliations. And whereas first appointed to the medical board by State Assembly Speaker Herb Wesson on September 24th, 2003, and originally assigned to the board's Division of Medical Quality, Barbara Yaroslawski was reappointed to the board by Assembly Speaker Fabian Nunez in 2007 and Assembly Speaker John Pettis in 2011. And whereas, following her elections as Division Secretary and Vice President in May 2006 and February 2007, respectively, and with the repeal of DMQ in 2008, Barbara Yaroslawski went on to serve as the Medical Board's Vice President and President, having held the latter position from 2009 to 2012. And during her years of service, she also shared her guidance and wisdom as chair of the board's disciplinary panels A and B and its education committee, later known as the Education and Wellness Committee. And whereas, as co-chair of the prescribing task force, which tackled the significant opioid misuse and abuse epidemic, Ms. Yaroslawski was instrumental in drafting the medical board's revised guidelines for prescribing controlled substances for pain and in getting information out to the public and physicians about this serious issue. And she took a leadership role in various other important issues, including pain management, access to care, enforcement, and licensed midwives. And whereas Barbara Yaroslawski also represented the medical board on the Health Professions Education Foundation Board, which makes scholarship and loan repayment programs available to people pursuing a career in the medical professions in the state of California, and she has been a constant champion of consumer protection and a voice of the consumer, always bringing a consumer perspective to the board. And whereas, as one of the longest-serving members of the Medical Board of California, Barbara Yaroslawski has earned the high esteem of her associates and the appreciation of the public, and her knowledge, insight, sound advice, and consumer protection advocacy will be greatly missed by the board's members and staff. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Senator Ben Allen that he takes great pleasure in commending Barbara Yaroslawski for her outstanding leadership that she has provided the Medical Board of California and her exemplary record of achievements in community service, and expresses his sincere best wishes for continued success in the years to come, the resolution number being 339 on May 5th, 2016. That is lovely. Colleagues, if you have any comments to add, Dr. Kraus?
Barbara?
Dr. Kraus?
When I heard you were leaving the board, I wanted to leave too. I knew of you before I accepted appointment to the board, but had not met you. And I knew of your leadership of this board and all of your activities. What I did not know was your persona and your humanity. And your example and your personality and your humanity and your concern for every person who had an issue that was being considered by this board were just so meaningful to me. I hope that all of us can be as compassionate and passionate about what we do for this board as you have been. Thank you.
That's very nice. Yes?
Barbara, the first time I met Barbara was actually I was CMA president, 2009. we had I still remember that it was about corporate bar. We were in the, I think, Assembly or Senate, and I was testifying on behalf of doctors on corporate bar, and that's where I met the medical board president at that time. And then when I got appointed in December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2011, I called Barbara and said, you're the president, what do I do? She said, come over to LA, we'll meet. So actually, because my first board meeting was coming up in January. So I drove and we spent some time. She explained to me how the medical board works and really appreciate it. It's not that easy, especially during holiday time, to meet someone who is just trying to meet you. And but more than that, I think what really I appreciated most was that not only your passion for the public safety, consumer safety, but even when you had the worst health problems, you did not miss board meetings. That's not easy to do, so we truly appreciate your dedication.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle.
Well, I've had the chance to know Barbara prior to the board, seeing her on this board, and serving with her since I was fortunate enough to be appointed. And I must say, I know a lot of leaders, but I really don't know too many that have the breadth and depth of knowledge that you have. And I hope that, and I know you will continue on doing the great civic work, community work, and you will continue with the significant contributions that you've given to so many people, as stated by our colleagues here. Thank you.
Jamie.
Oh, Jamie, go ahead.
So I have gotten the opportunity to get to know you personally recently, and it has really been a pleasure. The depth of your knowledge base is incredible. And on our panels, kind of guiding us through the thought process, you know, shepherding us along when we kind of get stuck on issues. It really means a lot to have someone like you there. So you will be sorely missed from a professional and a personal level.
Barbara, I want to thank you for the passion that you bring and have brought over the years, definitely in the 4 years that I've been on the board. And you get us to think differently. And I hope that we can all sort of bring Barbara's thinking to the issues that come before us, and that they don't go away when she's not here. So thank you. And thank you for being a friend, too.
Ron? You guys could still have
I know.
go to the cafe and Fairfax.
I
and
know.
have a big-
I know. Everybody needs a Jewish mother. Barbara is my Jewish mother. she, I know, it just makes her emotional. She has tried to fatten me up. She brings me pastries, sugar-free. She knows I'm diabetic, so she always tries to take care of me. She's a go-to person, and I feel that the new members of the board have been robbed. I really feel that you didn't really get a chance to know Barbara. But also, we like the same TV shows, and that's more important. We like Blacklist, Person of Interest, and when I first met Barbara for breakfast, we just talked the whole time about our TV shows. And to this day, we have that kind of relationship. And I won't miss you because I will be your forever friend. Thank you.
That's very sweet. Judge?
I would just like to say, I think what others have expressed, for those of us that are new, sometimes life isn't fair, and it's just really unfair that we're coming and you're leaving. And I only hope that there's somebody that is close to able to step in to fill your shoes to help educate us youngins.
Oh, yes.
Actually, Barbara, you made me feel I'm very young again, because I realize a lot of things to learn from you. You're a very, very committed person, very compassionate, passionate. I think the board and the public, we owe it to your service. I have never seen someone who's so committed, so fearless. You speak your mind, 99.9% you're right anyway, and I think really the public will miss you, not just the board. And I'm glad we have more public members now. I wish you stay longer so that they can learn from you. But you can go back to hopefully webcast to let it.
So, Barb, the words are a little bit hard to find, but I think those that have spoken before, I could take credit for all the benefits that they mentioned. Been on the board for 1 year, and it was very intimidating about being on the board. Am I going to be able to serve? Wanted to be to bring some value to this appointment. But one of the things that helped, in addition to you offering specific things, was just observing the passion, the commitment, the dedication, how seriously you took your position. And so you can feel it, you could see it. And so I said, well, wow. And so I want to thank you for that experience, that exposure, helping me feel that this job is really, really important, and how much really attention and care you provided for your role. Thank you very much.
That really is just a little way to sum up how we feel, Barbara. And we're so blessed that you'll continue to serve the state on the nursing board. But now you can speak.
Give him hell.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this community. I don't really think it matters what hat you wear, be it a physician's hat or a public member's hat. You're all consumers, so I have to believe that doctors also get sick and also care about their health care no differently than any of us. And I have to also remember that there, by the grace of God, we were lucky enough to have health care, and we would know how to look up our doctors. We know how to be passionate for people that don't have the same luxury and opportunity to know how to get things done. It's one foot in front of the other. It really is. And the medical board has changed. I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday who was on this board, it seems like before I was, because he was there before me, and he's still alive. To hear that, but to hear from him what this board used to be in his mind, it was a monthly meeting with a party at each member's house, depending on where they lived in the state. I found it very sad that through my tenure, I think what I've seen is there has been a tremendous change in attitude. When we were two separate boards, licensing didn't know what Department of the Quality, BUMQA is what I remember. It's BUMQA, but I don't know why, because we never called it that. But we never knew what was going on in licensing, and licensing never knew what was going on in quality of care. So when there were licensing problems, we never knew, and when there were quality of care issues, they never knew. So we've had fabulous staff. We've been very lucky. We've had some changes that have been made. It has nothing to do with other than at the moment it wasn't the right fit. I don't think anyone that has ever been in this job as executive director cared any less than anyone else. But I think that the opportunity that we all bring to the table to say something, you see something, you say something. That's our national motto in life, and it has to be the national motto on this board. That when you see that something's not working and not right, you have every opportunity to open your mouth and say something. As you all know, I'm not a big fan of rearranging chairs on the deck of that Titanic, and I quite often feel that that's kind of what position we've been put in. I just wish you all the best. I'm around. I still, I'm not going to the cemetery yet. You never know, but I'm always available. Just take your job seriously. What you do is really, really important. It's not only important for you personally. What's more important is for the people you'll never see, for the voices you'll never hear from. But you're making a difference for the quality of life of everybody that lives in the state of California, and I thank you. We're a leader in this country, and I hear the questions about the compact coming and coming and coming. Until they have the minimum requirements as the same as the state of California, be very careful what you accept. Because what we have here in place in California is the gold standard. It really is the gold standard. And don't let anyone change that. I mean, you have every right, your vote counts, and you all count. Oh, and my God. Yeah, he can't. I've been married to him longer than I've been on the board. So, thank you. I mean, and I have to tell you, your executive director, you've never met a finer person that cares more about everything and everybody. The time she spends with every other board in the state that don't pay her a penny for her time, her energy, her thought process to make sure it works. It's not just to make sure the medical board works, but that every entity within the state that she can offer help and advice to and make the system work. She's been a godsend, and you should only use your opportunity to engage with Kim and make sure that she, don't ever shut her up, because she's always right. She is. Yeah, she is. So thank you.
Yes, I'll hand you the resolution.
So for any of you that run for public office, the last thing you want to do is read resolutions. Are you ready for public office? No,
Uh,
it's really very nice, David, it was very nice.
I thought we
It
deserved.
was lovely.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
I know, well, anyways. You have to smile.
It was in this hotel, I was with a nurse. Seriously, after being in the hospital, I mean, this hotel has, I have fond memories, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Bishop remembers.
Are there any comments from the public? See, our sister state agency, the Attorney General's office.
I just wanted to let
Please
the
take a
record
seat.
reflect how much you will be missed, Mr. Oslovsky. I've never been in HQE without having you as part of this board. I joined HQE in 2005, and all of my staff was very, very saddened to hear that you were leaving. But I'm confident that you planted so many seeds here in this board that you will live on, and you will be very proud of what you left behind. And they are big shoes to fill, but you've set such a great example, and we just know that you care so much about the patients, the consumers, the doctors, and every staff member involved in making this work. And you always reminded us that we're a team, and that the truth is really important to get down to. And we always knew we had to really just respect your take on everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Castro. Are there additional comments from the public?
Yes.
Yes, please.
For the benefit of the new members, my name is Julie D'Angelo Felmuth. I'm going to pull a Dr. Lewis. I'm the administrative director of the Center for Public Interest Law at the University of San Diego School of Law. And I have been hanging around this board for 30 years. And I've never been around a member who has been here as long as Barbara, or who has served with such passion and compassion. You, as that resolution recounts, you have been a leader on just about every issue that has come before this board in the past 13 years. But the issue on which you have excelled is ensuring quality health care in underserved areas. And you remaining board members, don't let that drop. Don't, in Barbara's honor and in Barbara's memory, and you're not dead, I know that. Please be as try to be as half as passionate about that issue as she has been for 13 years, because you have personally led the crusade to bring health care to underserved communities, and that's such an important part of this board's mission. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Lovely comments. Okay, the board stands in recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see you later on, and we're going to do a group photo.
Okay, good,
So,
good, good, good.
board stands in recess till tomorrow at 9.
Thank you for all your help.
You're very welcome. Thank you so